Good, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to a few of you. Welcome to today's community briefing. My name is Gregory Sneed, and today is December 14 in 2023. So we are running out of the year and coming close to the fourth quarter, and we're coming close to Christmas. Only 9 days left. I guess 8 days of shopping to go. So hopefully, those of you have most of your shopping and or have yet to begin. So we wish you luck there. Today we have Miss Denise Pines, and she's going to be sharing with us some wonderful information. So sit back and relax and enjoy. Again, my name is Gregory Sneed, and the name of my company, Lifesaver Financial Services. I help my clients with wealth building, asset protection, and legacy creation. As I firmly believe that when you feel better about your money, you feel better about your life. Now, it's my pleasure to bring to the virtual stage the queen, the December queen of our community briefing, Miss Crystal Mitchell.
Welcome, welcome, guys. Glad to have you. Denise, I'm really happy to have you here because it seems like there's a war on women right now, especially in Washington, and they don't seem to think that we have a voice or the mind to take care of our own bodies. So very happy to have you here. My name is Crystal Mitchell. I am the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars, as well as I have my own business, which is business coaching and consulting in areas of startup, launching, and financial bookkeeping and financial management of small businesses. So I want to thank you guys all for coming. This platform is co-sponsored by and co-powered by Recycling Black Dollars and the Black BBA, the Black Business Association. It was an inspiration during the pandemic to make sure that we knew who was doing what, where, and keep them accountable. And also as a collaborative platform to bring information to our communities, which is much needed because generally we find out stuff when it's past or just about 2 minutes before it's about to shut down. And so the platform here is designed to help us be more proactive. And last week, Joe kind of changed my messaging. I usually say we don't want to be on the menu. We want to be the main course. And Joe says, better yet, and I think it was John Bryan, that you don't want to be the dessert, because most people pass up on the dessert, right? So I think I'm gonna use that one instead. So we want to stop being the dessert and we want to be the main course, and so that's the platform. We have a fantastic team. Mr. Gregory Sneed, you've already met him. Mr. Stephen Turner, who actually, without his production and producing skills, we would not have guests. And so we want to thank him so much for that. And then Ms. Robin Billups. And so with that, I'm going to switch over to Ms. Robin. And before we do that, guys, I went to a workshop there, or actually a seminar on the reparations that's coming out of the city of Los Angeles, coming out of Karen Bass's office, and they need 4,000 signatures on their survey. I took the survey. And this was a program put on by Community Bill. I'm going to put the link in the chat. So if we all will complete the survey, it's a little long, but very important. If you live in Los Angeles, fantastic. If you have ever lived in Los Angeles, ever, you need to complete it and send it to everybody else you know that have lived in Los Angeles. And I think they're doing it throughout the state, but we're definitely focusing on Southern California. This is important because California is a trendsetter. So once we get it passed here and they get to move it on to the other states, reparations are very important for apologies for what they've done to our people. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Robin.
Good day, everybody. Glad to be here. Robin Billups with the Billups Group. I work with entrepreneurs to help them get to their strategic plan. I do coaching and assessment, and I work with corporations who are looking to rectify their challenges with a diverse supply chain. As usual, my platform is voting. It's a critical time for us with this vote, because when you look at what's happening with the Supreme Court and what's happening with No 45 and all of his challenges and issues, we really have to look at who are we electing at a local level, a regional level, and a national level. We have to be actively engaged. But do have some good news. This morning we had the announcement around the accelerated housing and transit development project that you guys have heard about from Michael Anderson. We had a bunch of powerhouses in the room this morning. McKinsey did the study. They validated the numbers. Neighborhood Housing Services is our partner. California Community Foundation is one of our partners. AIA is one of our partners. Jacobs Engineering is one of our partners. So we're pushing forward on that. You'll be hearing more about that. But one of the announcements that was made by Lori Gay from Neighborhood Housing Services, they actually have $40,000 grants for folks who are looking to do ADUs. $40,000. And they have term debt once you actually get the unit built. So again, my biggest thing for them is they believe in education. They would believe in retaining your real estate, not selling the real estate and moving out of the community, but retaining your real estate, improving our communities. And we'll be talking more about that, in 2024. And then, the other thing to say, and I'm taking up a little bit of time. I was thinking about this. This community briefing truly is our platform. The whole mission is to bring information that you can use as soon as we close out the program. You're going to get something every week that you can actually implement, share, duplicate, replicate, grow your business, grow yourself. And so again, I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here. And I look forward to our guest today, who's my friend. But more importantly, every week we have some dynamic people on this program. And we're more than grateful for the sponsorship, Sarah and Crystal with Recycling Black Dollars, and our team. So thank you again. I'm in the gratitude mode right now.
Good.
Greg?
All right. So today our guest is Miss Denise Pines, and I'll give you a brief and short introduction for her. So she's an age enthusiast, longtime community health advocate, and media pioneer. She's a trusted resource for women as they pursue midlife wellness. And she founded WisePause Wellness, a pro-aging health education and workplace platform, and the Femme Aging Project, which hosts the pitch competitors and provides innovators and investors in the health and tech industry sector with research reports addressing innovations specifically designed for women age 40 plus. She is the co-founder and the CEO of Tea Botanics and the inspiration behind Hot Flash Tea. I'm sure she'll be telling more about that. Hot flashes. And some of y'all know about the hot flashes, huh? Pines is the immediate past president of the Medical Board of California and serves on the boards of the Federation for State Medical Boards and the Osteopathic, I hope I said that right, Medical Board of California. Pines also co-founded Women in the Room Productions and is an award-winning filmmaker producing 12 documentaries, including Birthing Justice, which examines the Black maternal health crisis in America, and her next film, Shattering the Silence, opens up the conversation on menopause, right? She is a graduate of San Francisco State University, and also John F. Kennedy University and Stanford University. Oh, Stanford. So I just saw some pictures, I think, of you guys had a holiday party. Was Kim Mitchell part of that group, the Stanford University holiday party there? So I have no idea where she grew up, where she's from. So she'll share that with us when she comes to the virtual stage. Please join me in welcoming Miss Denise Pines.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. So I am from the Bay Area originally. I grew up, I was born in the UK, came over to the US when I was about 5, intentionally got rid of the accent because it wasn't cute back then. And lived in between Oakland and Berkeley until I moved to Los Angeles almost 30 years ago. So, I love the Bay Area, but I really love Los Angeles. And, not going anywhere for a very, very long time. But I would say LA has been really good for me in a number of different ways in terms of, having the ability to be able to do and expand upon the work when I have an idea, right? And so one of those things I'm going to talk about today is Black maternal health. It was interesting initially when I talked to Robin, I wanted to talk about menopause in the workplace. But I think that we can't even get to menopause in the workplace if a woman doesn't live through pregnancy, right? Like there is no menopause that she's going to have. And the trajectory of her family and that community is, incredibly impacted for the rest of our lives. And we are experiencing that throughout the entire US. So if I can share my screen.
All right, stand by.
Okay.
Permission. All right, give it a shot. You should have.
I should have it. Okay. Okay. Okay, perfect. Whoop. It's not an auto thing. So I'm really grateful for this platform. I wasn't really familiar with it until Robin shared what you do. And I think this is so amazing. I'm definitely going to be talking to everybody that I come in contact with about this community briefing, because even just before we sort of went live, there was a really interesting conversation. And these are the kind of conversations that we need to be having on a collective basis. I'll tell one little story. This film that I did called Birthing Justice was very successful, and it put me in a lot of places that I had not been before. I had not been to the Aspen Ideas Festival to be able to speak on that platform. That platform is where all the change agents in the world come to talk about, solving the world's problems, domestic problems. And it gave me an opportunity to get invited into something. So I got invited to a billionaire's house with 20 other people. One of the people I was sitting next to literally was Secretary of Health and Human Services, Javier Becerra. And the whole conversation was about reproductive care and health, and what can we do in all of our respective hats. So I wear a regulatory hat. What can we all do in a creative way to improve health outcomes for women during this childbirth kind of time frame? But there was something else that happened there. The head of legal for Governor Newsom was also at the table. And there was a particular bill that was being drafted. It was pretty much in its final, but the billionaire says, I have invested into this company that does this. And the way that bill you are talking about is drafted may not include this new device technology, whatever. Is there a way to include what this device technology does into that bill? And you know what happened? The person says, yes, we can make that change. And suddenly I realized as Black folks that we need to do that, that the most influential of all of us need to come together, those who have the money, those who are in certain positions, those who understand processes, how stuff really works, right? They had me there because they had to run past, could this get past regulation? And so I say that to say that this feels like that kind of platform, right? But we need to do more than that. So I want to extend my gratitude for community briefing and having me here to be able to present today. So most of the work that I do focuses on girls and women, from education and childbirth to menopause. Today, I want to talk about the state of Black maternal health in the United States, because it has reached a critical juncture. And, it's a crisis that's been going on for numerous years. Our maternal health rates are even more alarming today than they were 30 years ago. I mean, imagine that I mean, it's so like sobering because when you juxtapose the remarkable advances we're having in technology, and we can't deliver a woman through pregnancy and the baby being safe, there is something fundamentally wrong with our healthcare system and for people to allowing that to continue. So to me, there's an urgency that underscores the need for immediate and comprehensive action. And so it was the reason why that we created this film, for the film to be used mainly to create awareness to the women and the people who are the advocates for them, but mostly for the healthcare community. So they can have self-reflective moments as they're watching this film to see where they are, falling prey into this. So what is maternal mortality? It is the death of a woman during pregnancy, at delivery, or soon after. But it can be up to a year or even 18 months. And even though all women suffer from maternal mortality, it is considered a health disparity because it disproportionately affects Black women when it relates to pregnancy complications and then childbirth. So what is a health disparity? So a health disparity is, because I think we really kind of need to know it. We know it, but I think we really need to know it. A health disparity is a noticeable and preventable differences in the incident, in the prevalence, in the mortality, and the burden of disease and other adverse health conditions that exist among specific populations when compared to and contrast to a larger group. And the larger group we always are contrast to are white people. An example of this, today would be like, maternal mortality. And when you see the data points that I'm going to show you, I know you're going to go, you can't believe that it's really happening. I mean, that's what really got me to do this film. I couldn't believe it when I saw the data points that Black women were losing their lives at such a rate. The US is failing. We are the only industrialized nation in the world where maternal mortality is rising. And 80% of those deaths are preventable. And California is considered to be a leader. We're supposed to be like number 2, doing well. But if we were really to get graded, we would be a C-. So the 10 worst states. I mean, put yourself in the shoes of Black women. Imagine knowing that you are more likely than any other woman to experience maternal mortality solely because of your race. Well, all over the country, that's what pregnant Black women are feeling. They're stressed, they are having anxiety. I've had women, young girls who want to get pregnant come and crying to me that they're afraid. And they cannot go into a pregnancy with that level of stress. So I tried to let them know that no, that's not going to happen to you. Here's all the resources in your city, wherever I might happen to be. The worst states for maternal health are mainly in the South. And what they have all in common is limited access to healthcare. The Affordable Care Act that required all 50 states to embrace and become eligible for Medicaid. Yet these states still have not. There are 13 states that still have not embraced Affordable Care Act. They have fewer places and options for getting care. They have more racial segregation and income inequality. And then the best states like California, Massachusetts, Oregon, Washington State, what they have in common is what the worst states don't. So they have expanded access to health insurance. They have full spectrum birthing care like midwives, doulas, that we know are associated with better maternal and child outcomes. So out of every 100,000 births, 70 Black women tragically lose their lives. In stark contrast just to overall maternal health by 33. So this is the disparity we're talking about. And unfortunately, it's become a worsening trend, meaning that 2019 to 2021, we saw this increase. And so it was increasing before COVID. And then, of course, during COVID, it really did increase. And then in California, the ratio declines like in 2006, and remained pretty stable. And then we started to see sort of an uptick. And we know that a lot of this information isn't even accurate, meaning that the every state can determine maternal mortality based on X amount of days. So typically the standard is 42 days. But women lose their lives up to a year or 18 months, meaning that I come out of the hospital in 2 months, I could start having heart problems, hypertension, etc. And that will eventually may cause my death. So we're trying to get some consistency on like length of time so we can get more and better accurate numbers around this disparity. Again, I just focus on Black women. And as you can see these ratios in our own state, you see the increase between 2012, 2014 to 2018 and 2020. And this is California, quote unquote, being second best. And these rates are compared to Hispanic women, Asian women, and of course, white birthing women. So what's the cause of maternal mortality? They are included, but not limited to like blood clots, preeclampsia, which is associated with high blood pressure, and an increase of protein in the urine that usually begins 20 weeks after pregnancy. So what should happen? We should have markers for Black women, like around that 19 to 22 weeks, where we're constantly checking on their blood pressure and their protein in their urine to see if they are at risk, so that doesn't persist down the road where they eventually become high risk, birth. Infections, cardiovascular conditions, and then hemorrhaging. And then the other thing, we all kind of, as Black people, know this term, the physical, Black women experience physical weathering, meaning their bodies age faster than white women due to the exposure of chronic stress linked to socioeconomic disadvantages and discrimination over the course of their life, beginning at birth. Okay, so at birth, we are stressed all the way through, which is why even when we get to menopause, Black women suffer more severely and longer with menopausal symptoms. So even if you're young and getting pregnant, you're still in this sort of weathering part of your body. So I know you're kind of wondering, why do Black women experience, such extreme outcomes, even when compared to women of color? The research has shown that implicit bias can cause doctors to spend less time with Black patients, leading them to receive less effective care. They undermine their pain, they dismiss their complaints, and it doesn't matter if you are Beyonce, who had a problem, or Serena Williams, who almost died as a result of her complications and her complaining of trouble breathing. She had to continuously pressure her providers to perform tests, but they still wanted to chalk it up to her medicine that she was on. And finally, after persistence and really threats from her white husband, they did a CT scan and found she, in fact, had multiple blood clots. So we would not have Serena here today if she had not, and her husband, been able to fight and advocate for her. So indicating that no money, no education, no fame can buy a Black woman respectful health care. So just think of this. I mean, Black mothers who are college educated fare worse than women of all races who never finished high school. Or Black women in the wealthiest neighborhoods do worse than white women, Hispanic, and Asian women in the poorest neighborhood. So we kind of just talked about like attitudes of healthcare providers, but other disparities persist too. Like, we talked about this, we talked about it earlier just before about the socioeconomic status, increasing wealth building and whatnot in our community. But, this, combined with person's work experience, their resources, social position, and relationship to others is all social economic status. Implicit racial bias The example I used of Serena Williams, a Black woman who wasn't treated fairly in a hospital, even with giving birth, which can lead to a risky maternal mortality. And finally, underlining chronic conditions, many of which are brought on by health disparities that I talked about earlier, can increase a woman's likelihood of maternal mortality by making it much harder for a woman to maintain a healthy pregnancy. Other social disparities that impact birthing health outcomes include nutrition, the ability to get, plant-based food, transportation to get to the doctor's appointment, obesity from, being in a food desert environment where there's only like drugstores for you to get your food, and then safe neighborhoods and the rising cost of housing all impact the stability of that person and that person's body. And the cycle of implicit bias starts with really inaccurate beliefs about the biological differences between Black and white individuals. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see the film Origin by Ava DuVernay, but you have to go see it because she decided that to look beyond racism, because when you see how in India, we see in Israel and in Palestine, these same sort of groups of people, meaning from a race standpoint, they look white, or India, they all look Indian to us, this sort of caste system, and that really everything kind of comes down to someone has decided someone's inferior and someone's superior. It's a fascinating film that really, I think, opens up the conversation for us to re-examine race bias and how we're using that, and then how we can change, some of these things. Factors that prevent Black women from receiving proper care: poverty is number one. If they live in an environment that doesn't have resources for pregnant women, then a woman can go and only see the doctor one time before she ends up in that delivery room. And that becomes a really huge challenge. Hospitals that have closed their maternal, so the hospital's still there, but they've closed the maternal ward, forcing women to travel 50 to 100 miles. And if you don't have a car, that is really tough. So they end up not getting the continuous care they need. Lack of information, women are not informed about the resources and the benefits that will educate them on their body along the birth journey. Obviously, cultural practice, healthcare providers that lack understanding about the community they're even serving. I read a story someone sent me 2 days ago where the nurse is examining this woman, young, she was 37, and said, "Oh, you got a little hoodlum in you," right? She and her husband was with her. They were shocked. She says, "Oh, is this your baby daddy?" And so that whole healthcare system is getting sued, obviously, because of that approach, right? That kind of not understanding the community in which you are operating in. Inadequate service that make Black women feel like they cannot be assisted by the environment that they're simply in. And then just the underlying chronic conditions that, our community, of course, through health disparities have, like heart disease, asthma, obesity, diabetes, and substance abuse. And most importantly, that impacts this birth outcome is hypertension. Again, most of this is a result of social and economic disparities. So this is Black folks, we have a complicated history with America, right? Due to past and present experiences with racism and oppression, especially when it comes to healthcare, the Tuskegee experiment, the Henrietta Lacks cancer cells, J. Marion Sims, known as the godfather of gynecology, who performed and perfected surgical procedures by repeatedly operating without anesthesia on enslaved women in the 1840s. A lot of gynecological procedures are based on what he did with these women. There's 3 women in particular, one woman that he repeatedly did it to. So, this has fostered mistrust of Black folks in the U.S. healthcare system. So many people face a conundrum with the U.S. health system because it was never geared to treat Black, Brown, Indigenous, or even women. Okay, so the healthcare system we are in was not designed for any of us. And so when we're talking about healthcare and the first interaction with Black people, we're talking about the enslavement of African women and them being tested on in order to advance medical science. Oops, sorry. Lost my spot. Sorry, guys. And then you have Reconstruction era where you have Black men who can vote, and then that's taken away. Women who still can't vote. Then we have Jim Crow. Then you have the Civil Rights era, which led to desegregation. And along with all these changes, we never taught anybody to deconstruct from the patriarchy of superiority constructs, right? So how does this show up in healthcare when for hundreds of years we've lived in a place where people have been told you are less than, but now these healthcare providers need to take care of you. But they've never been taught to about what it means to remove those biases, those years of racial constructs or tradition, because it's really a tradition of racism that's been put in place about, for all people of color and women. And now I have to take care of a body that you were told to disdain. And so we need to restructure how our medical education works. We need to talk about ways for how we're caring for communities. We need to really come to terms with the reality of what it means to remove ourselves from transactional relationships to interpersonal relationships, right? So a lot of times when we go to healthcare, we got 15 minutes. Well, 15 minutes to see a doctor about something that's important, that's transactional. That's not interpersonal. That's not getting to the crust of why I felt I need to show up outside of my annual physical. So figuring out ways that we are able to get from transactional to, interpersonal. And then just those years of racial constructs, what does it mean to end structural racism and institutional policies, like Jim Crow, like redlining and mass incarceration, that are historically based features of an overtly oppressed US society and that have endured. These things have endured, and then they just adapt over time, right? Like they make a little something, like we think we get something, and then they, do something else, or use a law to block something. And so, because the construct of how it always was formed was never rethought to be reevaluated. And so now we're just constantly coming in with a Band-Aid fix or called implicit bias training, stuff like that, as opposed to, really examining, all the processes of which a patient shows up, right? So what's the process of me showing up at the hospital, that first person I engage with that's checking me in, right, to the nurse, to the doctor, like reevaluating what the experience is along that journey. And that's how we can find ways of promoting, more optimal maternal health for Black women and also infant health. I don't even want to talk about the numbers around infant health because it's scary. So we can change these outcomes, but it takes a willingness, really, it's called intention, right? You have to have the intention to address, racial and social inequities. And it's going to take all of us. It's the providers, it's the policymakers, it's philanthropy, it's the hospital corporations, and it's the families. And it is possible. We have seen a lot of changes just in the short period of time of releasing this film, of a lot of healthcare systems making some changes. So there's the news. I mean, we can expand and maintain health resources and coverage for Black women. We could recognize the bias and stereotypes and try to end them by educating the system at all the levels, like I said, that she engages with. We can look at formalizing existing relationships between lower resource hospitals and higher resource hospitals, right? So if this is a hospital that doesn't have maternal care, this is a hospital that does. Like, how do we bridge the relationship between those hospitals? I had challenged during COVID. I had challenged Stanford to do that. So on the other side of the track is another hospital that lacked a lot of the early preventive care, like masks, gloves, and things like that. And it made a difference. They reached out to the hospital and did some stuff. But if you don't get challenged, you don't do anything. That's one of the things that I've found. So, and we can address the social impact factors like low housing, Medicaid coverage, the social economic, and there is a bill in Congress. It's been introduced for a second time by Republican Lauren Underwood, called the Momnibus Act. And I'm happy to send some information as a follow-up. But that addresses all of these things that I just talked about: the social economic, increasing Medicare and enhancing the coverage. You'll be surprised at how little amount of money that Medicare covers for a woman who's going into the hospital to have a baby. And 40% of women who deliver babies in this country are delivering under Medicaid. And yet Medicaid pays maybe a third, right? So it becomes a loss leader for a lot of hospitals, which is why there's not a lot of sophisticated, in the lower end hospitals, a lot of sophisticated technologies to really help women and monitor women. So, my goal is that all parents deserve a beautiful, healthy birth experience that aligns with their values and their needs. But this has not been the case definitely for Black women. But we have a maternal health problem in this country in general. We rank like 23rd in the developing world. We're the number one world economically. We're the superpower. But when it comes to maternal care, overall, we're ranked 23rd. So we've got a problem in this space, just period in general. And I think if we remove transactional relationships to interpersonal relationships, I think we will have much more positive outcomes where women are listened to, they're acted on, they're appreciated for their wisdom, and they're respected for having a sense of understanding about what's going on with their own body. So in April, we released a film on PBS called Birth and Justice. It's still available. You can still watch it. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I know that was a lot. So I'm glad we recorded it. And I'm going to turn this on. Yeah.
So I have a couple of quick questions. And I know Robin will be chomping at the bit to get, especially when it comes to women's things, as not being a woman. But I had a couple of questions regarding the connection between maternal mortality and the obesity. And I say that because I hear the term sometimes food desert. All right.
Mhm.
And I don't believe that, like where I am here in Inglewood or is a food desert. There's definitely lots of, places to get healthy food. But I also see I don't say a disproportionate, it might sting a little bit, a disproportionate rate of obesity amongst Black and Latino. And we all put on some pounds as we get older, but I'm talking about teenagers and they're 20, 21, and they're just huge. And at times it's like, how would you even know that they're pregnant? Because they look large.
Well,
And so what's that?
yeah. So you need to understand what's happened with food in the last, I would say, 25 to 30 years, and the chemicals that these young people then that go into adult are really consuming. Before, when we sort of had junk food, I want to say probably in the 70s, 60s, 70s, is very different to what that junk food is today. So that food creates consistent craving. So I'm not satisfied with just having a donut and the Twinkie. Like I got to have 3 donuts. And so the cessation is not fueled, and why you have the continuous eating at each meal. And we have moved from where, the big meal, I grew up where the big meal was on Sunday, where we ate, whatever. And we have turned every day into a big meal, right? As a culture, we've turned what was celebratory food into an everyday experience. And that food is not designed to be eaten that way. So we have seen increased portions. So we've gone to what used to be normal size when you go and go to the store and fill up your little slushie to 34 ounces. You really can't consume 34 ounces of what that sugar content is and not have some body repercussions. And so we're seeing, early diabetes in, as early as teenage years now, like at 16. I have a cousin in our family who her dad died at 32 from diabetes. So her mom knew this. And yet she would let her daughter eat all the sugar. And then by 16, she was diagnosed with prediabetes. So we have to, one, educate our families around, what is, healthy eating. I kind of don't want to say healthy eating because we got to figure out another way to describe eating that sustains your body, eating that allows your brain to function, eating that allows you to have energy to do whatever the heck you want to do. We've got to figure out like a new way to communicate with people who, when you say healthy eating, all they think is like, you want me to have lettuce and whatever, right? So that is what has caused this obesity. It's not that, it's not the people themselves. It is what is in those products that creates that constant craving. So, take yourself off sugar for a month and you won't have no craving for sugar. But start to put that sugar back in and all of a sudden you want it again.
Well, yeah, it's that and the high fructose, corn syrup, which didn't exist, so that the difference is there. But that food source is the same for all. So we would see we wouldn't see the disparity amongst races as large as in the stats you showed. So I'm again just draw that correlation that
have you gone to the Midwest? There's a bunch of overweight people in the Midwest.
And down south, where they take a stick of butter and fried it. Yeah, I get.
Not a black and brown phenomenon, honestly. Yeah, we know what those chronic disease states happen to us, and it's one of the things to just look at. Like, I just think Black people are allergic to sugar, right? And that's how it manifests in our cells and our fat cells expanding. I remember the first time I went to Australia and saw like the indigenous. I was like, where's the indigenous people? Like, I want to go to where the indigenous people are. This is bullshit. Where are the indigenous people, right? And so they take me to where they're like far, where the indigenous folks are. And what I found was those who still ate from the land, ate from their history, were healthy. But those who started to incorporate the sugars and all that, you literally just looked at them and they looked sick, right? And that's kind of when I realized, like, I think genetically that we are allergic. We have an allergic reaction to particular chemicals that just has not been studied.
Well, it has been studied. The corn syrup is one of them. High fructose corn syrup proportionally impacts the Black and brown community.
Yes.
So not sugar. It's a sugar, but it's a corn syrup. Yeah. Anyway, let me not
hasn't changed anything.
For that part of it.
Changed the food.
Yeah. And you also mentioned about stress. That the stress is external, but there's a lot of internal stress that's again, I got to dance around this one a little bit. Within the Black community, because sometimes I have a lot of clients in the school in the schools, and historically there was a lot of violence among the men, right? The guys, whatever like that. And that subsided a lot. And everything I hear, it's the women that are going at each other. So that's, they watch, what's these shows, Black Housewives and things where they glamorize, going after one another. They're the ones who are in the fight. So some of that stress is building up and leading to it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's some things that are external and there's some things internal, and through education, hopefully we can help our community.
Yeah.
That's
That's sort of interesting. So my next film that I'm doing, well, there's two. One is on menopause, for obviously, right? And then the other one is called Stress Lessons, where we're looking at adolescent mental health. And we're going as far as 11 years old, because the fastest growing group to call into the suicide prevention line are 11-year-olds. And so we've been talking to numerous neural brain psychologists, scientists, psychiatrists, to really understand what's really going on. And really the biggest thing that we see is the adolescent frontal lobe has not been developed for the kind of information that they have access to. So we are showing them and having them be exposed to content that their brain hasn't been able to develop to process, what that really means. And it is creating, an immense amount of stress on them, and they are very impulsive. And instead of, they're choosing a permanent decision for a temporary emotion, right? And we've got to help them to connect that you can get through this emotion. And I think in our world that we have overly perpetuated happiness, right? That happiness is the thing for all time, all being. If I'm not happy, the world is a disaster. Well, you know what? We're not going to be happy all the time, right? We have moments. Happiness is a state of being. I'm going to be happy today. Tomorrow I might not be happy. I may get some bad news, but I know I'll get through that. Young people have not built the resilience skill, right? And because we expose them so early, they haven't built the resilience skill. They're still very much under the arm of their parents. Their parents have become a little overprotective because they want them to stay happy, right? So it's going to be, this is the first film that I've said to audiences that I don't know what the fix is. We have gotten too far down the path. There were things we should have done much earlier that we had in place, and we're too far down. So now what we have to go in is figure out, in all the environments that young people are, what can we do in those environments, right? And what kind of support can we offer? Or, there used to be Black suicide with young people is the fastest growing. Black suicide, fastest growing suicide in the country. There was a time where, you heard somebody kill themselves, you're like, I know it ain't nobody Black. Black people don't kill themselves, right? We've gone through slavery, we've gone through Jim Crow. But what we're not really realizing is these people have not gone through that. These young people have not gone through that, right? And I have not gone through that. So I don't have kids, but if I had kids, they did not go through that. And so we're not recognizing the crisis in our own family because we have a false belief that we don't do that.
Denise, this has been so enlightening. It's a lot. It is a lot. And I'm going to take it upon myself to officially invite you back again and again and again, because one, Crystal Crystal does some deep work with young folks, and some of these things that you've said, even about, we started talking about maternal health, but at the end of the day, it's family health, right? Everything that you're saying, we all need to hear. It's not just a woman or a man thing, because men have daughters and wives, and women have sons, right? And so again, I really, really appreciate just the nuggets that you've provided to us. This tangent on the young adults and their brainstorming being developed. We don't think about that, but that is an honest to God fact. One question that I did have for you, though, give me some feedback on clinical trials. I am in a clinical trial with the City of Hope. And matter of fact, I've actually met with one of the board members, or I'm going to be meeting with one of the board members early next year, because I think that one of the things that you mentioned is the medicines that they're creating. If we've not participated in the clinical trial as Black people or brown people, then our DNA and our makeup hasn't even been included in that. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the, I think one of the major issues about drugs that come out on the market, and then we find they don't really work for Black people or brown people. And putting a drug out on the market is like minimum $1 billion in trials, tests, retesting, da 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 da. So it is very important for us to be part of clinical trials. As long as we're making sure that that clinical trial is being executed fairly, right? Like we're not getting the placebo,
yes,
right? That you can see that it's very randomized, how they're doing it, all of that. Third party is a part of it. So I think yes, we have to get involved. Women have to, only 4% of the research dollars goes towards women's health. It's ridiculous. That's why the White House, maybe about 3 weeks ago, launched this big research initiative on women's health, which is also including, menopause research, because it's so woefully lacking. Mostly men are, making the decisions, and not to cast aspersion on men, are making decisions about issues that they personally don't know about, right? They think PMS, like that's just you get through it. They don't see like we've said PMS is okay, but is PMS really okay? Is it? Right. So that's the things that we need to study. Endometriosis. Why do we not have a solve for endometriosis? POCS. Why do we not have a solve for these women's issues that have been around for a long time? Lack of research dollars, honestly, to study in these areas.
This has been delightful. Crystal, did you have any questions?
I do, Denise. I'm an advocator and I have a big mouth and I get angry I'm pissed off on a regular basis. Like the moment I wake up in the morning, I'm pissed off by something somebody's doing about Black people. So you speak in my story, but I do work with kids. I'm part of several organizations that we have the audience of kids. I actually teach kids how to be entrepreneurs. I would love for you to talk to them. If you need a group of kids to come together, I can make that happen for you.
Okay.
I also work with the Urban League, and so we have major programs with that, and that's where my work comes in. But the piece about advocacy for Black women and Black people, period, you as a Black person can't go to the doctor and expect to get the same advice and a care that you're going to get if you're white. You got to go in fighting. I start at level 100, and your job is to bring me back down so I feel like I'm safe in your care and everybody that I advocate for. But recently, one of my girlfriends, my sister's girlfriend, just found out that she had a hip replacement and metals broke off for the last 3 years into her body stream. She's been complaining about pain, and they keep telling her to take a Tylenol. So today, now her bones are weakening, all the stuff that happens when you have metals floating through your body. And they kept sending her away. And she didn't know how to fight for herself. So yesterday, my sister told me, I got into my research mode. I was like, you need to go here to 20 top doctors that deal with heavy metals in your body. Go find one and then fight with your insurance company, because we go in thinking they're going to take care of us and they're not.
Yeah. And getting heavy metals out of the body is very specific.
Yes.
It's very, very specific. Heavy metals is very damaging. Heavy metals staying inside the system, like any metal that you can think, rots, right? It rots.
Yeah.
And so if those metals make their way up to your brain and that sort of rusting begins to happen, that's you end up having some problems. So she should look at, maybe it's a malpractice lawsuit. Maybe she can file a complaint with the Medical Board of California to see if all the procedures were really done correctly. There's a way to light fire under people. We just need to know that there's tools that are out there and things that we can use, and none of that stuff is based on race. While I was on the medical board, we had Black doctors who had come to me going, the medical board disproportionately discipline Black doctors, like for stuff white doctors don't get disciplined for, or they get a lesser discipline. And I was like, really? I'm thinking, really? So I had asked for us to do like an investigation. When we looked, we saw no, not really. So fortunately, we had a really great executive director who said, let's have a third party come in and evaluate the last 10 years of our records, right? They came in, evaluate the last 10 years, and what they found was, yes, it was true, but who was really more discriminated against were Latino doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We didn't see that coming. More so than Black doctors. And as a result, because I've been in this social justice space for a long time, I was like, okay, here's everything we need to do, right? And so what we did was we removed as much bias from our decision making, from the judges, the DA's office, the investigators, and then me as a board member from the process. So I don't know what your age is anymore. I don't know what school you went and got your whatever from. I'm just getting the facts of the information. I'm just getting initials. So I don't know what your ethnicity is, so that if I'm racist, that I can make a decision because the last name was Gonzalez. And so it allows us to really just look at the case. Look at the process and the procedures and make a decision off of that. And so that has now started to go across the country, is how to, look at deciding upon cases. And that's what I meant by, we have to look at all parts of the structure of which we operate in, right? And say, where potentially is there a bias potential, right? So of course, if I said I went to Stanford, the doctor went to Stanford and had all of these accolades. I mean, we had a guy who had too many drinks. He wasn't a drinker, but he had a son. Maybe his son was 13 or 14, and the team won. They all go out for beer and pizza, and he has too many drinks, and he's not normally a drinker. He's drunk. He drives home with his son, hits a bunch of cars in his neighborhood. People see him, drives into his parking lot, into his driveway. By the time he got in the house, the police were there because the neighbors had called. They knew who it was. And because this guy was this world-renowned doctor in San Francisco, very, very unique specialty, we wanted to give him a pass. Because who was going to replace him? Well, that's irrelevant.
Right.
He made a decision where he could have cost his son his life, cost his own life, could have hit a pedestrian who was walking that day. He just puts too many people at harm, right? So, those are the things where you take the bias out.
That's that point that you just made. I'm going to be using that because, again, just trying to help people understand the bias that's there. They hear your voice, they see your last name, they know you're a woman versus you're a man, blah 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 blah. Yeah. That's very, very insightful. And I'm going to deem you, as I've done before, we're going to deem you one of our medical correspondents.
I agree.
So you're invited back to be, to impart this wonderful information, and we want to support you with your film. So we need you to keep us connected with that. Yeah. Certainly, this platform will be e-blasting that information, and we need you to come back. We really need you to come back.
I'd love to come back and talk about menopause in the workplace.
Oh yeah, that'd be fantastic. Menopause, period, man.
That's interesting.
It's
That'll
so
be
hard.
interesting.
I'm working with the entertainment industry right now, but they won't let me. They said, I said, hey, can I use your name? No.
Yeah.
They're still not committed. They're willing
Right.
to start the training,
Yeah.
but they're not really full on board. But I mean, definitely it's changing. We're in a moment right now.
Yes.
Every sort of every kind of stage has its moment, and finally menopause is sort of having that moment. And it could be that these young people have grown up with these tools attached to their phone. And like when they, right now the oldest millennial is like 43 years old. So that's perimenopause. Mm-hmm. And they are like, there's not a tech for that,
There's an app.
There's an app when you go sweating profusely to stop it.
How do I put this on pause?
Exactly. I put the pause on pause.
Yeah.
So they're like coming out like, what? This is ridiculous. And so I think we, are starting to see some interesting, changes, but we still have the healthcare institution that has not budged. So we have medical schools that talk about menopause in like maybe a 40-minute lecture. Mm-hmm, so a woman lives 30 to 40 years of her life, and you're talking about that crap in 40 minutes? 40 minutes in their whole, medical
training.
Mm-hmm. And even an OB barely gets menopause. Mm-hmm. They get childcare, So, I mean, it's really definitely like a major, major issue that, which is why so many women suffer, because they go to physicians who don't know how to care for them.
Awesome. Denise, as well, I see that you're a serial entrepreneur. You have launched 10 businesses. So I would love for you to talk to my kids. We can do it virtually. We do a live class once a month. I have 65 kids in a class right now that are learning to be entrepreneurs, but we can do it also virtually. We have a hybrid class. So if we can make that happen next year, that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I would love for the kids to look at creating businesses that are in these spaces, right? Social justice, food care, eating healthy, creating businesses that support young people in their needs. So if we could do that, that would be phenomenal, as opposed to makeup and lipstick.
I'm so over beauty.
Purses,
I'm really over
it. There was
lip gloss and jewelry.
Right, you're right. It's right. You're right. It's beauty and jewelry
and food and food.
But,
and eyelashes.
Yeah. Eyelashes. Yeah, they speak.
You guys, on my ride here from downtown, this is really critical to your point, Crystal. There was a surgeon on there. He's a surgeon, but he also works with these AI companies to help them understand that, if I put this script in there, I need, and they have it at the level that a medical doctor can understand it, but not the patient. So now he's using AI, to help bring the information that patients need to read to a 6th grade level. The other thing that they did is, because there's no Black people really around this AI, what is a Black surgeon? What does a surgeon look like? 99.99% of the time, it's a white male. If you're asking AI to create it. Well, right. Because who's inputting that information? So to your point, Crystal, there are some opportunities out here that our young people need to be exposed to, that if you're going to be in artificial intelligence, you're going to be in, on the net working, there's so many other areas that you can fall within besides, being an influencer around clothes or makeup or food.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even if you go looking for icons and clips for Black folks, you say business people, you have to be very specific and say business Black people or business Black women, and then you come up with a very small percentage because we're just not in there, and so we need to be inclusive. So just like the medical, there's so much, and so Greg, man, it's just stressful. You Black in America, man, it's stressful to open your eyeballs in the morning. If you are a woke person, it's just too much stuff going on all the time. But Denise, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So appreciate you. Come back, be like Dr. Mays. Come back and give us a update. We'll know that there's an update anytime you pop in. You're welcome to pop in, and especially anything. And menopause is deep, man. Yeah, it's deep.
Can I say one thing? I have a friend that wrote a book. I put it in the chat. It's called All Aboard, Next Stop Menopause.
Yeah, man, you got to be ready for it.
Yeah, so I yes, right. And here these people trying to catch the train, just like Dr. Pines is saying, trying to get on board.
Yeah,
here we are.
Right, exactly. But this has been so enlightening, especially on our children, on our women having babies, which is just a natural thing. And I just find it so ironic today that we have a group of people in this country that are fighting women to not have children, but at the same time, they ain't trying to keep the ones that are alive here that are having kids. It's such an oxymoron. You don't have a problem telling them what they can do with their body, but when it's for their benefit, then you want to intervene. Now, that just doesn't work. And I think it's really an issue. So that's back to Robin's point, voting. Because any man that's going to tell me that hasn't experienced menopause or cramps or any of that, you don't have no right to tell me what to do with my body. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
If you ain't been on the front end of this drama as a woman, you cannot be on the back end.
Yeah, I think the
So,
sad part
Go,
about
Crystal.
the policy that was passed was that there was nothing in there to increase support for the increase of women going into labor and into the healthcare in that way.
Yeah.
I didn't even know how a piece of policy could get passed without having that kind of inclusion. Like in our state, that would have never happened, right? Someone would have said, who's going to pay for this?
Yeah.
Right.
That's why we live in California.
That's why we live in California. That's totally is why we live in California. Fantastic. But there are people in policy that's definitely thinking. And we just got to make sure that we also support policy makers. We gotta, support them. One of the reasons why the Black vote isn't taken seriously is because we don't give money to campaigns. And when we come as, PACs and folks that, give money to these campaigns in the same way we give money to our churches, let me tell you, our issues will come up higher on the totem pole.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, guys, we're going to have to end our day. Thank you so much. My mic even got upset with me. So please, guys, go in and take the survey. It's so important because all of this is part of that, Denise. When this survey talks about our medical care, it talks about all of the disparity that happens in our community. So it's not just about us receiving our millions and billions of dollars, but it's also making sure that monies are going into programs that are specifically for us. So if you would do that, they need 4,000 surveys completed. I think when I was there last Thursday, they had 400. So we are a little ways away. So we need to make sure we get that out to everyone. Especially if you live in Los Angeles, and if you've ever lived in Los Angeles, I don't care if you were born here and then they took you out the next day. You were born in Los Angeles.
You're Cali, baby.
Yeah. Answer the question. And any of your relatives that were here and no longer here, send it to them. I've already sent it to my whole entire family that lived here. It's so important because we got to make change. Right? Yeah. We can't keep talking about this and not having resources to make change. So then we can put into the voting system and bring our own folks, because right now it's just corrupt. So thank you guys so much, Stephen. Well, we're going to be gone for the next 2 weeks because it's the holiday season, and we want to. I know, huh? So we want you to go and practice some self-care. Enjoy your family, your rest, work on your own businesses for a while, and then we'll be back in January.
And may I interject? And
yes.
As you're having all of your family activities, make sure everybody in your family has registered to vote.
Yes, I agree.
That's a great Christmas present.
And watch
Appreciate
some of our other programs that have been recorded. If you miss some, you got time next Thursday, the Thursday afterwards, watch a recording of your favorite community briefing program.
Exactly. And you can go over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button, and that way you can get all of them over there. So thank you, Denise, for being part of this conversation. This is the kind of conversations we need to have from people sitting at tables in areas that are really, really important to us as Black people. So thank you. January, we're coming back with start the year up with some more amazing people that are out there making things happen, doing things for us in our community. And then you are to take this information and share it with everyone. I know I got about 5,000 people on my Facebook page, so I know y'all got some as well. We take all of those numbers and we can inform the whole entire country that look like us. How about that? Have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy
Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa.
Yeah.
And Happy New Year. And I hope your New Year is going to be quite prosperous and you enjoy your families, guys.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.